Okay, I guess we're talking about it one more time. Big disclaimer, I'm recording this video the day before it's going to be uploaded, so if any of these two players sign a contract between the time I'm talking to you on this audio microphone and the time the video is uploaded tomorrow at 3 p.m. PST, then I apologize. But these guys have not signed for a while now, and I'm starting to kind of get annoyed. When the heck are we going to see the contract signed, man? Not even with these two, but like Kadri, everybody else too. My gosh, Klingberg already signed with Anaheim, so good for him. But boy, there still are some other names that are holding up this entire process of finalizing teams and everything. And when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, it appears that two of these guys that are linked to this team still boast for some pretty interesting conversational topics in general. So, let's go over onto the Edmonton Journal and take a look at this piece published by Kurt Levens on August 7th, 2022. Now, this was 3 days ago, but these guys, at the time of me recording this audio on August 9th, 6:27 p.m. PST, they still have not signed, so it still validates the idea of talking about these guys, pretty much. So, let's go over onto the Edmonton Journal. This is the best thing Ken Holland could do for the Oilers, is slow it down. 9 things, published by Kurt Levens. Let's go over onto the 5th thing he has written about in this piece. Two well-known veteran NHLers continue to be linked to the Oilers, PK Subban and Phil Kessel. Subban has made over $80 million in his career, barring any taxes. Kessel has made $93 million. At this point in their careers, they have made most of the money they will ever need. What they will still want to do is win, especially after seasons in New Jersey and Arizona. So why would their agents not put a call in to a Final Four team to see if there is a fit? Now, a Final Four team, he's talking about Colorado, he's talking about Edmonton, he's talking about New York, and he's talking about Tampa Bay, but, of course, this article is an Oilers-based piece, and it says here that the Oilers are linked to these two guys. Still, let's talk about the idea of PK Subban, former New Jersey Devil and big personality in the NHL, as well as Phil Kessel from the Arizona Coyotes, potentially being Edmonton Oilers targets. Now, I'll say this right here, right off the bat, just to kick things off. Phil Kessel being the first one, I don't think it's going to work out. We had already made a few videos talking about Kessel being linked to the Oilers and how it would be an interesting fit, etc., etc. He could score some goals alongside of Evander Kane and Hyman and everything, but like, at the end of the day, Phil Kessel makes his bread and butter scoring goals as a right-wing guy who can come in and absolutely snap it down the wing. He had a pretty good season last year, getting 52 points in 82 games played, but he only had 8 goals. This is actually the lowest amount of goals that Phil Kessel has ever had in a full season, ever. His second worst productive year goal-wise was his rookie season in 06-07 as a member of the Bruins, where he had 11 goals in 70 games played. Now, his playmaking side, oddly enough, did actually come to fruition, as he had as many assists in this season with the Coyotes as he had had in previous years with Pittsburgh, which was the prime of his career. But, for Phil Kessel in general, it's just a positional idea that doesn't really fit in my opinion, because right now, we had already made a video yesterday talking about Jesse Puljujarvi, and the idea of him and Yamamoto battling it out for that last top 6 spot. You've got Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, and Evander Kane as top 6 locks. That means you have one more spot available, and you have Puljujarvi and Yamamoto fighting for that spot. Enter Phil Kessel into the mix, and all of a sudden your growth and development for these young guys, for one season at least, is stunted, because you'd have to move them to the third line, and, I mean, Puljujarvi's only really signed for 1 year anyway, so this is sort of a prove-it year for this guy. Do you really want to set him up to fail in that kind of way unless you trade him, which I think is an idea that's already floating around in a lot of Oilers' minds, and Yamamoto's here for a few years, so maybe he's got a little bit more of an expiration date that isn't too near, so it's just a little bit too much to think about, I feel. Could Phil Kessel do well with Draisaitl and McDavid? Hopefully. I was about to say probably, but then I kind of caught myself and I was like, wait a minute, Connor McDavid loves to hold on to the puck, and Phil Kessel also loves to hold on to the puck too. That's kind of why there was a little bit of conflict as to whether or not Kessel would play well with Malkin, because both those guys just love having the puck in their stick. Draisaitl is a lot more of an on-the-stick, off-the-stick type of shooter that doesn't really hold on to the puck too often, and he just kind of lets McDavid do the work. So if Phil Kessel can sort of play a lot more like Draisaitl than he does McDavid, I think it could be a really good addition, but of course, circumstantially with the lines and with the other players that are there, I just don't really see a good fit that would allow for proper development with the assets that the Oilers also want to develop at the same time. Meanwhile, you go over onto PK Subban and you acknowledge that yes, this guy definitely is not as good as he had been before. If you're signing PK Subban, it's not because you're getting a Norris caliber guy from 2013. It's because you're getting a player that you really want to help mentor your young guys who can go out there and produce some points and who has a personality that makes a lot of fans want to tune into your team. PK Subban, at the end of the day, he's a draw, and a lot of people want to go out there and see this guy play, not just because of his talent, but because of who he is. PK Subban last season with the Devils had 22 points in 77 games played, a pretty good bounce back from his previous years point-wise, but of course, the season before that, 44 games played, 19 points, that was a better point-per-game year than what he had this season. He was getting 50, 40-ish points back with the Predators, and then of course he had that really good year in Montreal, winning the Norris Trophy and eventually also getting 60-point seasons with that team before getting signed to the contract. But both these guys, Phil and PK, are both not going to get a lot of money comparative to what they've been getting before. That's just kind of a given here. So at the end of the day, it really just comes down to whether or not your favorite NHL team, whether it's Edmonton or some other squad, values that type of personality, the status, the body of work, the championships in Phil's case, in order to shell out that amount of money and say, okay, sorry Puljujarvi, sorry Yamamoto, sorry any other right-handed defenseman that's on this team, okay, Evan Bouchard, Cody Ceci, Tyson Barrie, you gotta think, like, a lot of these guys are already offensively minded defensemen, so do you really need somebody else like Subban coming in there and taking up, let's say, Cody Ceci's minutes? I really don't know, and it's kind of the argument that a lot of Canucks fans were saying when it came to acquiring John Klingberg. Like, why the heck would the Canucks go after Klingberg if they already have Hughes, OEL, and Rathbone? These are three guys already that are pretty offensively minded. They need defensive defenders now. So for Edmonton, I mean, I get it. There's a good balance there. Kulak is an all-around guy. Nurse is an all-around guy. Broberg is a puck-rushing guy. Ceci is not the most offensively touted guy, but with Bouchard and Barrie already as offensively-minded defenders on the right side, do you really need a PK Subban to come in here and add even more offense? That in which is a lot more limited in his capacity because he's not that good anymore. So, talk to me in the comments, let your thoughts, the idea of PK Subban and or Phil Kessel both being linked to the Edmonton Oilers, and whether or not you would like to see them sign any of these guys. I mean, we have a few Oilers fans tuning into this channel. I know a lot of you tuned in for the Puljujarvi video yesterday. Would you like to see Puljujarvi completely get the short end of the stick once again by signing Phil Kessel to a 1 year, let's say $2 million AAV contract? I know some Oilers fans might go out there and say, wait a minute, why would we do that? Just sign McLeod first, because that's obviously taking priority here. But just in the realm of the hypothetical, what are your thoughts on Subban, Kessel, heading over to Edmonton? Do you think Ken Holland does it? Do you like the idea that these two guys are even linked to your team in the first place? The article that we pulled this from is going to be linked in the description. There are 9 things, of course, discussed in this piece as per the title, 9 things. It's kind of like a 32 Thoughts Oilers edition, but it's written by Kurt Levens, and it's not really thoughts, it's just things. So there are some other ideas thrown around in there in this piece that are pretty interesting conversation fodder. They talk about Yamamoto and McLeod and Draisaitl and a few other things, as well as the free agents that we discussed in this video. Talk to me in the comments, let your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this entire conversation over here. So, Trolls 99, and bye.